Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next installment of Geopath's Out of Home Office Hours. And today we're going to be focusing on the recent updates to the Insight Suite. There's been a bunch of new features and functionality additions that we're super excited to show you. I'm Scott Fischetti, and I'm joined with, as always, Brian Schopper from Geopath. And I'm just gonna give a moment. I see people still logging in, so I'll just give a few housekeeping pieces of information, and then we could jump right into it. But feel free to ask questions throughout. As always, we want these sessions to be useful for you all. So we'll try to address questions as much as possible, kind of in the moment as they come in. So they're probably, especially with these kinds of webinars, it's really probably easier to answer that question when we're on the screen and we're as part of the demonstration. So we'll do our best with that. If we can't get to a question, we'll follow up with everyone afterwards and try to answer your questions specifically. Like I said, just please try to. I know you can chat directly with us or also use the Q&A widget. It's a little easier if you put your questions in the Q&A widget. Because then we're able to answer those directly. Sometimes if they're coming at us in both directions, it gets a little harder to manage. But if you're having trouble with the sound or anything like that, just throw a note into the chat, or if the visual isn't coming through that well, let us know that way as well. And I think, seems like a number of people have gotten in from the waiting room. So I'll jump right into the deck and to go through some of what we're going to cover today. So hopefully everybody's seen my screen and today's agenda. So some things like I said, we want to cover obviously are kind of related to the Insight Suite today. One overall, just provide a refresher on using key modules as needed. So if you have a question about something you haven't been able to do or been trying to do in the Insight Suite, definitely feel free to ask in terms of how do I do this or that? We'll definitely get there. But the key thing is that the first set of bullets up there. So there's been a number of recent feature and functionality updates. So in particular, some refreshed and new functionality in the population mapping area of the tool, the population library. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the tool. I really like using this part. So I'm excited about some of the changes that occurred there. In Market Plan, there's some new features there and some new messaging there in terms the ability to include, exclude inventory, some ability to plan by spot goals, which is another great feature that we're excited about as well. So, kind of maybe talk through these already, but just the thing, like I said, one of the things that I'm really excited about in this part is a screenshot of the population mapping, which we'll go into a little bit more in depth, like in a moment or two, but super excited about the ability to map by zip codes now. So that was a feature that we've been wanting to have in the tool for a long time and, working with our partners at MotionWorks. So excited to have that ability in the tool right now. And then also another thing we'll note too, on the right side, you'll see the indexing right now, and that is different than in the past. Previously, it was indexed against I believe the nation. Now it's going to be indexed by the geography that you're looking at. So that's going to be more helpful as well. So a couple of really, I think, big improvements in the population mapping area. And also, as I mentioned, super excited about in Market Plan to be able to look at plan by a spot count goal, and we'll show you how to do that, as well as the ability to include and exclude spots when you are creating a plan. And there's various reasons why you may or may not want to use this, and we'll talk through a couple scenarios as we go through it, and love to hear some other scenarios if you think of them as we're going through. And also, we've got a couple emails and geek out about this as well. And so we definitely wanted to cover this today. So there's some new messaging within the tool to hopefully help you along and give you a sense of what is going on and when you're doing certain things, especially in Market Plan. So in terms of when you're adding or including or excluding spots, what does that really mean? And in terms of when you're planning with a goal in particular, I think you'll see this messaging often with the spot goal as well. So wanted to make sure we're educating everybody, helping them understand what these new changes and features and functionality additions are and what they mean to everybody. So I'll stop talking now and hand it off to Brian, who's going to take us through. And please, like I said, feel free to ask questions as we go through. We want to make sure this is useful for everyone. So I'll stop sharing my screen quick, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to just get my screen shared here. And Scott, I was actually going to start in the workspace module unless you would recommend starting in the population stuff.
No, I think that's great. I think that's probably where a lot more questions will be, and kind of a lot more of the end of the workflow is. So
okay, for sure. So let me head over to the workspace. And like I said, there's kind of a few different scenarios within here that I want to cover. Scott alluded to some of the new some of the new features that are in here, but a majority of the things that we're going to cover today are market plan based. I don't think that there were any updates to inventory plan that we want to cover, but before I really get into some of the new features here, I want to just start with kind of a standard market plan to just sort of set the stage. The first example here I'm going to be doing is, say you were putting together a market plan that is excluding certain spots. Like, say, for example, you're working with a client who always buys 5 or 10 spots every year. There's permed out units that are not going to be sort of open and considered open or available at all, so shouldn't really be considered in this market averages planning. So I would just want to start this off and then show you how to add some spots to exclude. First thing I want to do, just set this up as kind of a standard plan. I'm going to be working mostly in the Chicago DMA for examples today. So I'm going to do 18 plus. Like I said, market Chicago DMA. I'm going to leave this open to all operators, but basically I'm just going to set this up for roadside bulletins right now. So roadside selection from the media class, and then under operator media name, you can do bulletins. And I will show you all in a little bit, but as Scott sort of pointed out at the beginning, this is right in here with your media selections and all the other filters. This is where you can include or exclude spots. And again, I'll show this in just a minute. It's really straightforward. So let me just set this. I want to do a 4-week goal, and let's say we leave this at the standard 200 TRPs here. So let me just double check. 18 plus Chicago roadside bulletins, 4 weeks, 200 TRPs. So like I said, I'm just running this kind of standard right now, and basically I just wanted to show you number-wise how this exclude will work, and you'll see in a second when I go and I do this.
as that's running, Brian, one of the things I noticed, and I don't know if we've talked about on any of these sessions, is in the market plan as well, which has been a feature. I think this was introduced a little bit ago, but what was asked for a fair amount is the ability to filter, like as you're creating plans, the ability to auto filter. So maybe the next time we're in there, we can just point that out where you would hit that little button that was shown.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point. So the real main point of what I wanted to show here was just the total count of spots that exist in this market. And really, I find this is a good way to sort of visually demonstrate exactly what this exclude feature does. So I've set up my plan here. Again, it's just persons 18 plus, bulletins in the Chicago DMA. And you can see there are 3416 bulletins here. So I have a list of 5 spot IDs that I want to exclude from this list. So what I'm going to do actually, and you could set up a fresh plan and do it, or do it from start, or you could go to the parameters slider here, and then within inventory, you'll see I have the include exclude spots here. So again, say in this example scenario, you have I see we have a raised hand, so there may be a question that we can get to in just a second. But so say you're working on a scenario and there are a handful of boards in a market that are going to be permed out, not necessarily available at any time in the sort of near future. So you don't want to include them in this market averages. If they're not going to be boards that you can use at all, it might be easier to not include them here. So what I'm going to do, and this is just like the spot filtering in other parts of the tool as well. You can paste these in here from an Excel sheet, from an email. The tool's pretty good about parsing these out. But so I mentioned I've got these 5 spots I want to exclude, and I'm just going to hit regenerate from here. And so just keep in mind, 3416 was the number we were working with before. This is one of those 2 pop-ups that Scott mentioned. And this is the one that you'll see specifically if you're using the include or exclude functions. So really just telling you, if you are including spots, those included spots will be prioritized ahead of other spot selections. And if they're excluded, they'll be suppressed from the calculation. And if it doesn't match, they won't be used at all. So basically, we're just kind of looking at this middle one. So they'll be suppressed from the market plan calculation. And we're going to just rerun this now. Excuse me. So I saw that hand raised. I don't know if there was a question that came in with it or anything, but
I was just messaging with them, and feel free
perfect.
to throw any questions in the Q&A.
Oh,
chat.
here, let me do this. I don't think I got it.
Oh, got it. No, I think it was just accidental hand raise. So I think we're good.
Just an accidental hand raise.
Yep.
I'll need to double check on this because this is not doing what I was hoping for it to do in in my example right here. So let me see. I suppose I can move on to the include. Maybe try a different scenario in a little bit because this is not functioning as it should be right here. Here, you know what? Okay. Well, let me revisit that scenario. There might be a way we can get that to work. So the other feature that's really handy here. So let me grab those spots. I have these elsewhere. Okay. So the other side of that, and fingers crossed here, the other side of that is the ability to include specific spots in a plan. And there are a couple different use cases that I think this could be potentially useful for. So let me just X out of this so I can get to the plan setup. So again, I'm going to be doing persons 18 plus. Still within the Chicago DMA. And there's a couple new features that what did I click? There's a couple new features in here along the way that we can also talk about. So in this instance, again, I just want to add specifically roadside bulletins. Okay. And this one was 4 weeks as well, but instead of a TRP goal or reach goal, I'm actually going to use a spot goal specifically. So this is one of the newer features that's added into the plan here, and is in effect a more direct way to do something that people were already using Market Plan to do. In a lot of use cases, just in talking to members and sort of experimenting with Market Plan myself, a pretty common use case is for people to want to come in and set up a Market Plan and just understand the delivery of a certain package level or of a certain package size. So not necessarily aiming for a specific TRP goal or reach goal, but just I want to see how many impressions I would get for roughly this count of spots with all my parameters. And that's basically what this spot count goal is. So you can just put this here and put in a number of spots of the media type that you added. And so this will then set up my plan to show me what the delivery of 20 bulletins in this market against this audience would be. And again, this is a little bit more of a direct way to do something that people were already doing, where you would like set up a plan and then go and edit the spot quantities later. This saves you some effort and does this a little bit more straightforward there. But so what I want to do here, and you can do this when you're adding your media, or you can just open up the media menu again. But I'm going to paste in these, let's see, 10, these 10 spots that I want to add. And so basically the way this is going to work, so I've got my 10 included spots. So the market plan knows I want these 10 in my plan. And in this case, I have a spot goal of 20. So basically this is going to fill this out with 10 additional spots based on market medians and market averages, the way that market plan generally plans already. Scott, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, no, and I was just gonna kind of talk about potential use case for this, because again, similarly, like you were saying, with maybe if you're an operator and you are planning and certain spots in your portfolio are permed out, you may want to exclude those. Similarly, maybe if you're a planner and your client wants to buy these 10, they always want these 10 in their plans, but they don't care about the rest, and you just want to get a sense of that, of, well, how many other spots would I need, or something like that. You can use this tool for that as well. So that you need to include these certain number of spots or these particular Geopath IDs in your plan. So those are given, and then fill in with the rest. So that's probably one example of how you can use this tool as well.
Yep, for sure. And there's another use case I'll show in a little bit after I generate this plan. But again, same pop-up here. This time, your included spots will be the ones that are prioritized, and then the plan will be built sort of 10 after that. Okay. So, say I'm looking at, I've got this delivery here. You can see if I open up my parameters, I've got my 10 included spots. And actually, if you go to export this, which is, I can try to do this later. It might be a little difficult to reshare, but when you export a plan, if you have included or excluded spots, it will show you in your export what those spots are. So not only the count, but it'll show you them. And also importantly, it will ingest the spots in the order that you input them. So if you are, looking to fill out a grid or something after the fact here, and you're trying to match it up, it will take in the spots in the order you give it, and then it'll export it with those as sort of the first 10. So I've got, from here, I can just edit this to, any amount of spots or TRPs or reach. And as long as it's above 10, it will include the 10 that I put in here in the include spots. Another version of this that you can start to do, or another sort of use case that you can start to do with this, is say you are working on a scenario where you have a mix of different media types, or even different media classes, for example. So say you've got a handful of roadside bulletins and also some scheduled fleet, and you want to include specific bulletin spots and have the market plan fill out the rest with the fleet here. So what I can do in the parameters, let me go to inventory, median placement. So I'll do scheduled fleet, or fleet exterior scheduled. And in this case, I want to do Ultra Super Kings. Add selected. So you can see I've got my roadside bulletins here, my Ultra Super Kings. These 10 spots that I pasted in, these were specifically bulletin spots. So what I can do from here, in my target, I'm going to change the goal from not 20 spots. I want to fill this out to 50. And I'm going to have to do a little bit of fine tuning on the back end after I run this, just to get this more in line with what I want. But again, I should mention the way that market plan works, whether you have a spot goal, a TRP goal, a reach percent goal, it will effectively try to split your goal across the different media types that you have as evenly as it can. So in this case, it will likely give me 25 spots of each, and then I can go and edit that and kind of fine tune the allocation within the package. But I'm going to run this. This is going to give me 50 spots across these two media types against this audience in this market. And again, because I have spots included, this pop-up will show up here, just kind of letting you know what the include exclude function does. And I can also, this is a bit of another example. I'll do this right after to show you one of the other pop-ups that now shows up in here. But so to my point from earlier, this will split your goal, which in this case was 50, splits it 25 and 25 here. But again, say you were inputting a specific group of 10 spots, like these 10 bulletins by their ID were included in this plan, and you want to fill the rest out with Ultra Super Kings or whatever the scheduled fleet is. So I can just do 10 here, and I want 40 just to get that back up to the package of 50. So I can then rerun this, and this will now, again, as long as it as long as the input IDs align with what you edit here. So like if I did 9, it would only include those first 9 bulletin IDs that I added. Or if I had 15 bulletins, it would include the first 10 and then the additional 5. But you can see this is now giving me a split of the 10 bulletins that I put in here and then filling in the rest with 40 Ultra Super Kings, just in the way that Market Plan generally plans. Any questions that have come in the meantime on that?
No questions yet. So
okay, cool. Let me do a quick other example. This is really just to show what that pop-up is, that last pop-up that we were talking about. And I can just really quickly set this up. This one is just one I wanted to touch on briefly. Oops. Okay, just for consistency's sake, I'll do 18 plus Chicago. And roadside bulletins. Okay, and I'll do 4 weeks. I'll do 100 TRPs. Doesn't really matter. Basically, the point that I'm trying to get to, and there's Scott mentioned earlier, we have gotten a couple questions about what this pop-up is, and I think maybe that speaks to just, we might want to clarify a little bit what the language here is saying, because there's been a little bit of confusion, understandable. But so say, for example, I ran this plan, 10 bulletins to get me to about my 100 TRP level. So there is another instance where you might get a pop-up. And like I said, we've gotten a little bit of comments and questions kind of saying like, hey, I'm not sure what this means. So say I'm entering like 8 bulletins here. And really, this will happen if you make edits to your plan in this area, and it happens to make the new results fall below what your original results were. So you'll see, because I'm looking at like 8 bullets, let me do I'll do like 4, just to make an even bigger gap here. But you can see if you make an edit there and then an update, it should give you a pop-up at a certain point, unless this also is able to get me to 100 TRPs. I'll have to figure out a way to show this, but there are instances where, yep, exactly. So you may come across this pop-up here. And this is really just telling you that, hey, the new parameters that you entered, either the spot count goal, the TRP goal, the reach goal, the new quantity that you entered down here doesn't meet the original goal that you set this plan up with. And just so you know, you're not reaching your original goal, so it's just displaying what you entered. Kind of a long way to say what this pop-up is saying, but I don't want anyone to, be worried that, oh, this isn't working, or this isn't giving me what I wanted. It's just alerting you that your new edits don't meet your original goal that you set the plan up with initially. That's kind of all this means.
Right, because it's always going to try to honor that goal you set when you're setting up the plan. And it's just letting you know, hey, I can't do it, but here's the results that I get.
Right, exactly that. Right. Ultimately, the market plan was trying to figure out, like, okay, is there some combination of 4 bulletins that would still get to that 100 TRP level? More than likely not, there wouldn't be. So it's just giving me this alert that, hey, by the way, this is what 4 got you, but it doesn't reach 100 TRPs. And you can see that got me about 41 TRPs. Any questions so far?
We actually just got a question. So question is, can you exclude specific inventory using any one of the goal options? So impression goal, TRP, and spot?
Yes. Yep. So there's no restriction in that sense. Like, here, let me just add an audience so we can look at the different goals. So there is no restriction for the include exclude, depending on which goal you select here. Let me just think. There isn't a limitation in that sense. The only thing is, like, say you're pasting in 15 spot IDs and you set a spot goal of 10, for example, then it would only ingest those first 10 and the additional 5 that you put. I mean, you might not end up doing that, but that would be the only way that there might be some conflict there, and whatever happened earlier. But so unless there are any questions, and I can just hold on for a second, but I was gonna jump over to the population.
Can we do one thing at the risk of doing this live? Sorry to do it live. You never know what you're gonna get. But can we do the exclude again, because I think what was going on when you did that, I think it's always going to show that big number because that is the number in the market. You just are going to want to clarify to make sure you excluded those units, which will show up in your summary plan. So
And I suppose I can do that and then also export it to just confirm that as well. So let me, that's a good point. That's a good call out. So let me do this again just so I can kind of re-illustrate this. So again, 18 plus, Chicago. And I think it may have been I just was looking for something here that wasn't an expected behavior or something like that. Bulletins. Okay, so let me do 4 weeks. I'll do 200 TRPs, that's fine. And let me exclude these 5 spots. And again, I have the last 2 times I have opened this menu back up, but you don't need to do this separately. Like you can do this at the same time as you're selecting your inventory and then also paste in your include exclude. So you can do that all at once. I just ended up doing it separately here.
So let's confirm. So scroll down.
Oh, sorry.
So just scroll down on the right side so we can
excluded spots 5.
Okay. So we just confirm that it is recognizing and including or rather those spots.
And let me just export it, see if I can. It might take me a second to reshare my screen, but this will likely show what I was trying to illustrate. The behavior, as far as I understand it, is the same with, sorry, let me just find this file. But the behavior, as I understand it, is the same. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to actually just reshare my screen for a second so I can share my Excel file here. Scott, are you seeing my Excel window?
I am now, yeah.
Perfect. So you've got your plan export here, so you can see 20 spots got me my goal of whatever it was, 200 TRPs. And if you scroll to the bottom, you can see my excluded spot IDs are here. And the same, like I said, the same basic behavior happens when you're doing an include as well. So if you set up your market plan with however many spots included, there will be a section that says spots included. I think, so I exported this as a CSV and they're all down here at the bottom. If you export it as an Excel file, I believe it ends up as a separate sheet or separate tab within this file. So let me just
couple. So there's a number of questions that are coming in. We'll try to break them down 1 or 2 at a time. So in terms of, so we've been excluding and then including. Can we do the 2 together? Right? Can we? Let's say there are some we know permed out, yet there's others that we know that our client wants to include in the plan. So
I don't see why not. Let me put them both in here.
Should be yes. I don't think we've done too many examples like that, but
exclude and include. Are you seeing my screen? Did I reshare okay?
Yep.
Okay. And I just wanted to make sure I got back over.
As long as they're separate, unique IDs across the 2.
Yes. And I'm almost positive that I have these as separate ones. So include these 10, exclude these 5. I'll let this regenerate. And I'll export this again. I suppose I'll export this as an Excel file so you can see just how the format is a little bit different. Okay. Okay, so let me export this. I'll do it to Excel. Actually, you know what? That's a good point. I'm going to re-export, but this is kind of an interesting use case. So I included, how many was it? I included 10 spots here, but my TRP goal was only 200. So you can see it's only going to take me about 3 bulletins to get to my TRP goal. So this is only going to ultimately include 3 because it's all it needs to accomplish the goal. So just for example's sake, I could do, I don't know, let's do 15, just so we can get this to show like all of the included spots and all of the excluded spots. Okay, perfect. So let me export this to Excel now.
And there's a question about kind of when the cannot meet goal appears, and just wondering if there's different times when it would appear. before, should it appear and give you messaging before you're actually running the plan versus when you're editing the plan. And I think there are honestly, there's various times where we showed one example of when the messaging comes up. But if there are other times where if you're setting the plan and you've gone beyond the goal that it can achieve, like maybe you're asking for something that can't be done in that market, do
Right.
believe it does push messaging to you as well, letting you know that. And that'll give you, hey, it'll be the similar idea of like you're asking for 1,000, whatever, 100 spots, but there's only 900 in the market. I can't achieve your goal, but here's the best I can do, essentially kind of making it more of a colloquial phrasing I am doing, but it should give you that messaging.
Yep, for sure. Okay. So here again, I exported this as an Excel just to show everyone a little bit what the functionality or sort of what the formatting looks like. But so you can see this is basically exactly what I had in the user interface in the Insight suite. And then I have a tab each for the included and the excluded spots. So you can see here the 10 that were included. And because I asked for 15 in this case, it would have provided me 5 additional built around how MarketPlan builds plans. So it would include those first 10 and then fill it out with the rest. And then excluded, these 5 were not going to be included in the sort of the consideration set for the MarketPlan here.
And there's another question while we're on it. And again, if I'm not interpreting this correctly, please kind of message me in the Q&A or the chat. Let's say you had wanted to include 5, but it only takes 4 to achieve your goal. Is it going to what is the system going to do for you, at least in the export? I think
that's a great question.
A good question. Yeah, I mean, my guess is, you go, right?
No, so basically what it'll do, it's kind of the reverse of what I just asked or what I just did in that scenario. So I'm just going to grab 5 spots to include this time. So, oh, sorry, I'm not sharing. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. So this MarketPlan, I'll start with my media selection just so I don't forget about the spots I've grabbed. So I'm going to do, again, roadside bulletins, add those, and you can see I'll do this all in one this time. So I've got 5 spots I've added here. And just for reference to, like, I don't know if anybody wants to, I'll double check this but basically they'll, like I said, this ingests them in the order that you provide it. So just my initial gut instinct on this one is that, oops, I keep clicking that one. As you're adding, so I'll do 18 plus again, Chicago, but basically as you're filling out this plan, and in this instance, let me just set this to like a spot goal of 4. So we're not even going to use all 5 of the ones that I asked for. So I included 5 spots, but I only have a goal of 4 spots. So kind of forcing it to do this example here. So what we can do, and I'll just need to export this to basically confirm that, but give this a second. Yeah, these are really good questions too. I'm glad people are asking and sort of thinking it through this way. So let me just export this to CSV. Excel could be fine too. Doesn't totally matter.
Yeah, it's always helpful to hear the different questions because sometimes it's like scenarios we haven't thought of yet. So we really appreciate the questions. They do help us as well.
This is interesting. So I believe I can here. Just share. So this might actually be just something, something worth sort of discussing a little bit more. It's sort of a design aspect, but so you can see I've got my 4 spots included here. It did give me back the full list of 5 that I included. So I think that this would, like, had I passed in 10 IDs and still asked it for 4, I think it would give me the list of everything that was included, or as like the include filter.
Yep.
maybe it's worth, in the next sort of iteration of this, like spots included in the plan versus spots included in the plan setup. I don't totally know, but
that's, to me, that's the expected, this is what I would have expected.
yeah, this is exactly
Show
right.
the list of included, it's including 4, and we know it's going to pull it in that order.
Yeah, and this is the order that I put them in. Like I remember from pasting it in, this is the order they were ingested. So these would be these 4. And other questions in there, Scott? Share back to the Insight Suite.
No, just agreeing. There's agreement with you on what you just suggested. Like these are included. These are, these were specifically included in the plan. There's
Got it.
It's definitely something
Cool.
we bring up on our next dev call.
Sounds good. Yeah, and if there are any, I'll keep moving forward. If there are any other questions about this stuff, feel free to jump in. Or, after I do the population library stuff, if there's additional things people have questions on, we can always sort of go into a new round of, or a new sort of direction of things. So one thing, this is something I think a lot of users have probably seen this. Oh, it looks like we have a raised hand, but it might be a false alarm. We'll see. But so the population library, it's something that I think a lot of people have probably looked at maybe once or twice, but for quite a while there was, there's definitely some interesting functionality you could do in there, but there were some limitations. And so some of the new updates in here, like Scott said, this really exciting part of the tool. I've spent a lot of time in here. There's some really interesting things you can do, and everything I'm going to go through here today is very much so just a jumping off point for what's possible here. I'm curious to see where the questions take us and just kind of where people's thinking leads them within this population library, because there's a lot that you can do with this. So when you're in the Explore module, technically, like the Explore module as you think of it is technically the inventory library. But to get between these different libraries in the Explore module, you can just click this floating button in the top left corner here. And so I want to go to the population library right here. Okay. So you'll notice very similar layout to how the other view of the Explore module is set up. And you'll notice, and I'll probably catch myself too, you'll notice in here, there isn't the naming convention of audience. Things are referred to here as populations. And the difference being these are populations of people where they live, not necessarily audience of particular media. So these are not the audience of a campaign or audience interacting with particular pieces of inventory. These are populations of people where they live. So the Define Population tab, these select populations, you'll recognize these are very similar to the audience selections that we have in the other module. But again, these are looking at bases of population. I'll get into that in a second. I want to take some time just to talk through this define and filter geography. And I should mention too, since a lot of this is new, there are some tutorial videos that I put together around exactly this. So if anyone is a little confused about this or wants to re-review, we'll have this up to watch again. But I have some videos that I put together specifically around using this. So you'll notice there are 2 different drop downs here. And the sort of simplest way that I think about this personally, and the way that I would sort of think about this as a user, is this left drop down here lets you select how you want your populations grouped and summarized. And then this right side lets you choose what these are within. So for example, if I was looking at the county level, I can look at counties within particular states. So I can say like Alabama by county, and I can just kind of do these as I talk through them, just so you can kind of see what I mean. So Alabama by county, or if I wanted to look at counties by a state, I could look, show me all the counties within the Albany, Georgia DMA. Apply it again. So here are all the counties within the Albany, Georgia DMA. But I can also, so you can do that like within states, within DMAs, CBSAs. If you want to look at a list of counties and just select a bunch of different counties, you can do this way. Like say there are several in New York that you want to select, for example, you can do this, and then all of the counties in New York could pull up. So you could use this to select, multiple counties this way. But you can also look a couple different ways as well. So like the new big addition to this that I think is is especially really interesting is the inclusion of zip codes or postal codes here. So again, just like with the counties, you can summarize your populations here by zip code and then look at them within these other geographies. So if I want to look at zip codes within a particular state, again, just since Alabama is first alphabetically, I can just do that. Let's say you want to look at zip codes within Alabama. You can do this. And I should mention as well, zip codes are a bit non-standard. They do change a little bit year to year. And so there's not a perfect alignment between zip codes, counties, DMAs. So there's a little bit of a sort of bleed outside of larger geographies, if that makes sense. But so say I'm looking at postcodes within a state or within a DMA. So you'll start to see as I build an example here that this is going to really start to point you in some interesting directions if you're trying to understand, like, where does this population live? And again, almost said audience, very used to talking about things as audience, but again, this library here, this population library, is about populations of people where they are home location wise. So let me do, again, just since we were doing Chicago as our example, Chicago, Illinois. So again, I'm going to be looking at specific zip codes within the Chicago DMA. Also, just worth mentioning, this is so far just showing me person 0+. And you'll see somewhere. Is it? Oh, there was a, I'm not seeing it right now, but so this is by zip code looking at just person 0+. So not super, not super helpful for a specific population yet, but you can see we filtered this down to just the zip codes in this DMA.
But one
so
thing, oh, sorry, Brian.
No, go for it.
One thing it could be helpful, sometimes we get requests where people need to understand the population within a geography. While DMAs, counties, CBSA, you can get that even using the market plan or the or the inventory plan. This is a way you can also start to kind of punk the system, so to speak. To if you just set it for 0+, you're starting to get a sense of the population of that audience within a zip code. So if you use 0+, you're getting the total population for that geography as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And before I even go further with this, maybe there's an interesting way, like say we're looking at counties within the Chicago DMA. This might be a little bit of an easier way to sort of explain exactly what Scott was saying. But so Chicago DMA, we've got counties that we're looking at. And what I think is really interesting here is that, so here we go. We've got, looks like maybe about 10 or 12, 16 right there. So there's just like when you're in the Explorer, sort of the inventory view of the Explorer module, there are a few different ways that you can sort and arrange the options here. So by default, this will show you composition percentage high to low, and you can see everything is at 100% and 100% index because we're just looking at totals, total population 0+. But what's really interesting, you can actually have this, show you total population or target population within the county. So like if you, or within whatever geography you're looking at. So say you wanted to understand, like, okay, what are the different populations of specific counties within this DMA? So you can see target population. And again, because I'm only looking at 0+, this is the same as the sort of total population here. But you can use this to get a sense of like, okay, there's 5.1 million people in Cook County. In DuPage County, there's just under 1 million. So this could be a really easy way and a really helpful way if you're trying to get counts of a population in a county, in a zip code, different things like that. So let me go back to my example here. So I was doing zip codes and again, postal codes. Chicago. Okay. And again, like if I wanted to look at the populations high to low, like this, oh, that's low to high. One person in this zip code. It's kind of exactly what I mean. The zip codes are fairly not standard. So just, where am I looking? High to low. Let's go high to low. So this is interesting. Like this one zip code, let's see if we can find out where this is. Can I deselect all? No, I'm curious which zip code. So this zip code right here has 110,000 people living in it. most populous zip code in the DMA. Just kind of an interesting thing. I was curious about what this, and so you can actually, like, if you want to remove the map view, I guess I can't remove that. So what's interesting too, like if you want to go through and like remove things as you're going through, like you can deselect certain things as you're going, and you can see them disappearing off the map here. So you can select or deselect, and again, like the checkboxes here will do the same thing. Let me just really quick, I just want to clear this so I can get that star off the map. So say you wanted to look for where within a market a particular population lives. And this is where you can really start to get to some of the meat of this. So again, postal code, and I'll do DMA. Okay. So say, for example, I wanted to look at, let me open this up. So you can see very similar layout to how you see audiences. And again, here they're populations, but how you see audiences in the Explore module version or the inventory library version of the Explore module. So say I wanted to look at, let's look at persons 55 plus. And there's, again, there are multiple ways that you can use this. Like I said, this is very much so a jumping off point, just to give people ideas of certain ways that you can use this. But there are probably plenty ways that people will discover to use this that we haven't even thought of yet. So, so Hispanic, I wanted to do as well, Hispanic 55 plus, and let's do males. So we're going to look at this target population of Hispanic males who are 55 plus. And again, I have this set to zip codes within the Chicago DMA. So you can see here, and so by default, this shows you the composition percentage. So composition in this case, we're not looking at composition of impressions. This is composition of population. So 6% of this zip code is our target population here. So, and you can see a lot of these fall into the 6 or 5 range. So it might be easier or a little bit more useful at a certain point to start looking at the index. And again, Scott mentioned earlier, the indexes previously, I believe, were national indexes. These are now specific to the geographies that you're looking at here. So these are like almost 400% above average. This audience is almost 400% more represented in this zip code than the average zip code in the DMA. But you could also, if you wanted to look at this again by target population high to low. So like say you wanted to look at the highest number of this population by zip code. So 5,600, 5,400. What you can also do to sort of net this down for yourself, just like you can in the Explore module, you can use this filter drop down to say like, okay, show me just, so there's 440 zip codes here. Show me just the top 50 for this audience, or sorry, for this population. And so you can see like this is really helpful to start to understand like, okay, these are the pockets where I can find this population of people.
And also I think you can even set a value too, right? The filter by value as well to even customize it a little more.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even done that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so you can use these index sliders or composition percentage and sort of set a minimum and maximum that way. Right. Yeah, great point.
And I know we're starting to get almost to the top of the hour, but there's a couple interesting other features too with the layers and display. Totally. You can overlay inventory once you start to get your map set up, and also points of interest and create a radius around those. There's a couple questions that have come in, I think via the chat also, as well as kind of in the Q&A. But like question was like, can you set a radius, a radius and get, I believe the specific question would be, can I set a radius and understand the population within that radius specifically? The answer, I believe, is no at this point. It's an interesting use case for sure, but you can set up like a point of interest and create a radius around that and then understand the zip codes that fall within that radius.
Right.
There's a way to kind of maybe back into it, but I don't, given the nature of the question, I don't think it's specifically exactly what you're asking for in that, but there is a way to somewhat back into it. And then also just a question on the population data, which is again the question we often get, like what's the source and how often do we update our data as well. So I'm happy to jump in and do it. I know.
Brian... Yeah, no, So the population data here is largely from Claritas and also our partners at MotionWorks. And within Claritas's data set, and you've probably heard me say this kind of thing before, but Claritas leverages a lot of different survey data and collection data in that sense. So like the census is one of their big inputs. They've got GFK-MRI, Scarborough, a lot of different survey and credit card purchase data and things like that. Generally, so when Geopath does our forecast at the beginning of the year, that's when we typically update the audience data. It may be a little bit of a different cadence here within this population library. Claritas within their own data set, they do updates at different times of year. As far as our purposes, specifically for the forecast, at least, we're updating audience once a year when we're doing a new forecast. So really quick, and we can keep letting questions come in, but just a couple other features I wanted to mention. So this layers and display options tab, all of these things are things you can add to your map as layers that you can then stack and rearrange and customize. So say I wanted to outline the like city of Chicago, for example, or I could even do like, I'll do the DMA as well. So I don't know which one was which. Let me do one at a time. So city, I'll do the city and I'll make the city like a dark green kind of color. And then we can make the DMA. I'll give that kind of a light blue outline. I basically want to, lightish blue, that's fine. So basically I would just want to show you that you can apply, and there's other things I'll apply as well, but this can be really helpful if you want to understand like, okay, I'm looking at my audiences or my populations here, but this entire area is the Chicago DMA. If I'm looking at Chicago proper as a city, that's this green area. So much smaller than the immediate DMA, but you can see like if you're trying to understand, and actually I should mention, because these are layers, if I were to go into the population library here or the population selection and apply this again, I believe it should restack this on top of those layers that I just had. So it should put those layers behind. You can see these are now, and here I'll set this back to the top 25, but you can see like these are now behind the population kind of quarters here. And one other really interesting thing you can do with this in this inventory sets tab, you can see I've got all of these different inventory sets in my account here. But so if I wanted to add, I've got Chicago Bulletins mapping. It's just an example package I made here. So say I wanted to add these, and I'll make these like kind of an orangey color so we can find them pretty easy. Yeah. And like say you wanted to also, let's make these like stars on the map so they really stand out. And I'm also going to put this at the very top. So you can rearrange and drag these layers around. So I'll put that at the top, apply that view. And so you can see now, this is one way that you can really go about making custom maps with a combination of population. And this one's, I would definitely recommend playing around, figuring out how to layer things in a way that looks best visually. But you can see, like, say these orange spots here, these were ones that you were considering for a package. And you can see like, okay, this is where a population actually lives. So maybe these couple spots here would be really useful. And so you can do all of this kind of custom mapping here. And then in this actions tab up here, I'll just kind of zoom this in. In this actions tab up here, you can actually print and then print this to a PDF right from your browser. So this will allow you to have a pretty high resolution image. And I don't know if this print dialog box came up, but yep, you'll be able to print to your PDF or print to a PDF directly from the browser. And then you can just send that map along.
Right. And also too, another question came in too. Are there ways to kind of label the map and customize the map even further in terms of display options?
I believe you can add, let me try it. I believe so.
You can add text.
Add a white background. Should be somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is. So yeah, you can definitely add, and you can add multiple ones if you want to, or like, this is Chicago, whatever, and then you can kind of place that and explain like, okay, this is spot whatever number. I believe there might also be a way, I don't know if there is custom logo.
In layers too, if you go to layers, I think in the past you were able to, which I think it was a feature in the past, but might have been,
yeah, you might not be able to.
Because I think the ultimate question, I believe, is like, can I label like the zip codes or the kind of inventory, things like that. So there's some level of customization, but it is limited at times.
Yep, for sure. But this does exist a little bit here, so you can use this to label individual things. and it kind of scales with how you zoom it. So like it'll, you can see it stays a similar size, and then you can drag it around. Excuse me. Any other questions while we're on?
I'm just apologies if I didn't get to it. I think I just doing one last look through. I know there's one or two that I've followed up with people directly. Sorry. And more questions came in than I'd realized. Sorry, because I was like,
Yep, yeah, I'm looking as well.
Export a list of zip codes to Excel. I don't believe you can right now, but you can create your, you can save it as a set and use it within the tool.
Yeah, that's a good, here, let me just very, very quickly show you how to do that. So that's a very interesting question. So say like, I hate to use this example, but it's a good example. So say you're looking at, and the only reason I know this is just because I know this is sort of a common one. So say we're looking at, actually I need to do county. So say you wanted to, New York. So in New York City, like the 5 different boroughs of New York City are each different counties. So say, for example, someone is looking at a trade area or like a market area that is New York City as a whole, which would be the 5 counties of New York. So I could do, so just grab these and then Richmond. So I can apply these. These are now my 5 counties that I'm looking at. Perfect, New York City. And so what you can do once you have selections, and this could be anything. This could be zip codes, DMAs, whatever. I can then save these to my account as a geography set using this save as option down here. Just like I can save an inventory set to my account, and this makes it really easy. So then if I'm elsewhere in the other modules, like if I'm in the inventory library, for example, and I'm looking at inventory, I can come in here and say like, okay, show me the 5 New York City counties and apply that, line markets. And then this will then, so this in your save geography set, that's where you'd be able to find it. And so it would then be, I think this one may have had an issue. I may need to resave that one. But basically my save geography sets will populate with whatever you save, and they can be used here. They can be used in the workspace module as your market. So you can do quite a lot with that.
Right. And, one question came up a little bit ago was, you mentioned that these are based on the home locations. Can we do we understand kind of, or can we do a map of where people work? So basically the audiences are based on their home location. We could do the home locations of people who say that they are employed, but it's not, again, I know that's not specifically what you're asking, but that is potentially what we can do. And there's other questions about different audiences. So there's about 700 different audiences in the tool. And so there's a variety of different ways to mix and match some of them, at least in the population area, like Brian showed there. But a specific question about veteran and military populations. To be honest, again, I'm not exactly sure.
I think they're actually.
Yeah.
Here, I can, here, let me see if I can just break up these counties by zip codes. And well, I'll do New York TMA, it doesn't matter. New York, I know we're pretty much out of time, but I will just quickly get this one. I believe there's an active, current or former military service. And so you can then apply that. And then we would be looking then by zip code within the New York DMA. And so quite kind of not surprising, quite, low within New York City itself. But let's see, like we're looking at, show me the top 25 zip codes. Lot way out on Long Island, some down sort of New Jersey shore, a little bit up here. So you can definitely use this to help you identify those kinds of populations, or like very specific, like one that I was toying with as an idea for this example today. It's like cat owners. Like I think it's an interesting thing within New York, or just kind of within a lot of places. And I know we have to wrap up, but just, to show like if you wanted to look for like where a very particular audience lives, I'm kind of surprised there's definitely, within New York. If you looked within the city, I think that would be interesting too. But compared to the entire DMA,
And just to the point of the different audiences in the tool, like I said, that there's a number of them. If you want to find a list of those audiences, we actually have a Confluence page that's public facing. So an easy way to get there is to actually in the Geek Out library, we have the FAQs that we put together when we launched the 2023 release in February. There is a link to that in there. That is there's a question around the different audiences that were available in the tool. It kind of links you directly to there because it's a long URL, so I wouldn't be able to read it off or copy it into this right now. But that's one space where you can go, and it gives you a complete list of all the audiences available. Because I know sometimes it's hard for us to even know all the different audiences in there unless we're specifically asked,
Right.
we'll explore and kind of help out a member find a unique audience. So that's cool. I didn't even realize. I think the military service is a relatively new audience this year.
Yep. And I'm just quickly looking at some of these other audience or other questions in here. You cannot currently share geography sets in the same way that you're not able to currently share like inventory sets across accounts. Everything is local to your personal account. And let me see. There's a different view that you can use. Like instead of looking at this right-hand menu, there is a table view you can use, which I find makes this a little bit easier. However, you can't directly export, but if you're looking to grab like, populations of individual things, you can, I guess you can manually copy out of here, but there's not, by design, there's not a way to export this right now, just for, as far as I understand it, data license reasons.
Right. Cool. So thank you everybody for hanging on. I know which is great. There was a lot of questions, so I think this is
totally
valuable for everybody. There is one question I want to go back to with the include exclude. It was like, our example largely included excluded roadside inventory, and the question was, can you do that with scheduled fleet and place-based inventory? And
I don't see why not. As long as you have the there's no reason you shouldn't be able to, as long as you have the spot IDs. And just in general practice, I always like to make a point to recommend this. If you have Geopath spot IDs for something, I would always recommend using those just because they are unique and they're more standardized in their format. So if you have Geopath IDs, I'd recommend using those rather than the operator spot IDs, but the operator spot IDs should work as well. But to that question, there's no reason you can't. You can definitely do that as long as you have the spot ID. Actually, you know what? I don't know if, now that I'm saying it, I don't know if this requires you to input a Geopath spot ID. I would assume so because it doesn't specify.
All right. Sorry, I was just giving one last look at the questions. I do think we got them all. We'll go through them again. If we miss anything, we'll reach out to you directly, or please feel free always to reach out to us at geekout@geopath.org. Thank you so many people for sticking with us after the 3 o'clock hour, or at least Eastern time, 3 o'clock. We appreciate everybody joining. And again, we're here to help, and feel free to always reach out with any questions. So thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.